Tuesday night, America went to bed waiting on the presidential election results.
I pray the Lord Kamala is the one that's the president. Thank you. Amen.
And then when they woke up on Wednesday morning, they had a bit of a surprise.
That Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
For the last 10 years, I've heard this at the end of every presidential election.
I'm moving out of the country. Forget this.
And I get it. You want a new change of pace. So what countries are affordable for you to move to? And this is my personal list because my husband and I have researched affordable countries to move to, not because of an election, but because of retirement. At the end of this video, if the country you really wanted to know about didn't make it to the list, let me know in the comments section. But let's get into it because number one is my absolute favorite.
We're going to be expats.
Do I speak Portuguese? Absolutely not. But my number one country is Portugal. But there's some things you need to know. First of all, the cost of living there is way cheaper than the United States. But it's not as cheap as it was a few years ago because the secret is out. Portugal has become a hot spot for expats. Just for FYI, Portugal is about 40% cheaper to live than the United States. I don't know about you, but I could use a 40% raise. Call me crazy. It's estimated that rent prices are nearly half the cost, if not cheaper, in most areas around Portugal. Of course, your big cities like Lisbon, it's going to be a lot higher, but still significantly less than the United States. If you're looking for food and you're not much of a cook, there's tons of restaurants and cafes around the area. Food prices there are about 78% cheaper in Portugal than they are in the United States. Now, the quality of life in Portugal, it is totally different than the United States. So you have to be willing to adapt. You're not going to be able to find your local Costco around the corner. You're not going to be able to jump into a Walmart really quick. You're going to have to get yourself used to the customs and the culture of Portugal. Some people have a hard time adapting to that. It is a much slower pace of life. If you're looking to get like your internet connected quickly, I have a friend that lives out there. He said it took freaking forever to have the utilities put in his name to get high-speed internet out there. They're very slow. Not only that, if you are looking to like rehab a house out there, it takes a lot of time for the permitting office. It takes a lot of time for building materials, and everybody is on a slower pace. If you want it done immediately, you either do it yourself or you're just going to have to wait. And we're not used to that as Americans. And a lot of people that were in Portugal have been coming back because they don't like how slow it is there. They want to be a little bit faster pace. But you're in a different country. This isn't the United States. Now let's talk about the weather in Portugal. It's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. If you were thinking about you moving to any of the like beach areas, just know this, that during the summertime, you're going to love it. It is fantastic. There's people everywhere. It's always bustling all the time. Except in the wintertime. It's gray, it's raining, and it doesn't have nearly as much activity. It's going to feel like a ghost town in those towns. Again, if you're not used to that kind of lifestyle, it can throw a wrench in your brain. So you may want to stick with those bigger cities. But remember, bigger cities mean a higher price tag. Not nearly as expensive as the United States, but a bigger price tag. Now, when it comes to natural disasters, everywhere you go around the world, everybody has their fair share of natural disasters. Not too long ago, Portugal had the fires that went through their country. It did cause devastation, but like I said, that's going to happen anywhere, any country, even the United States. Ooh, a plus that you need to know about Portugal is the healthcare there is very inexpensive. That's including your pets. One thing you need to consider though, if you are moving there and you happen to have a remote job, make sure that your contract for that remote job will allow you to stay in that country for a period of time. Because a lot of these companies are saying now, you got to come back to the office. So nothing would be worse if you moved your whole entire life over there to find out you're going to have to move back.
In breaking news.
Real quick, I was just talking to my friend who is traveling all over Europe, and he was able to get health insurance for him and his girlfriend. So that way they're covered in case of an emergency. Do you know how much they actually pay for this health insurance for an entire year? 465 euros a year for health insurance. It's a heck of a lot cheaper over there, just saying. But that's my number one pick, but I gotta share with you my brother's favorite pick. And he knows this country very well. He even has a house there.
Have you heard of Costa Rica? I'm looking on here and it says Costa Rica is affordable.
Costa Rica. Did I say that with a weird accent? I didn't mean to. Cringe, as my kids would say. The thing is that Costa Rica is very affordable. A single person could easily make it there on about $2,000 a month. As a couple, you can make it about $3,600 to $4,000 a month. And this is depending on what kind of lifestyle you live. Now, my brother, when he goes to visit, he wants the best of the best. In his timeshare there, it is in a gated community. He has all the bells and whistles. He makes sure that he has a cleaning lady, and he wants to do absolutely no cooking. So he spends a lot more, but it's still a lot less expensive than a lot of other vacation spots. For him, this is where he's going to be his snowbird place. He's going to have a place up north in the northern part of the United States, and 6 months out of the year, he's going to be moving to Costa Rica because, you know why? It's a heck of a lot cheaper than New York City. That's where he lives now. The cost of living in Costa Rica itself is going to depend highly on where you decide to live. You know, the closer you get to other places that have a ton of other expat Americans and Canadians is going to be a heck of a lot more expensive than some of the more remote areas. But that's a trade-off. You're going to be paying a lot less, but you're not going to have as many amenities as you would in some of the areas that are more populated with expats. The cost of food in Costa Rica is a heck of a lot less expensive than in the United States, but just know this, if you're really into those processed foods, it's a lot more expensive in Costa Rica than the United States. There's a trade-off. If you're a fresh fruit junkie, then you will love to be living in Costa Rica. If you live on Doritos and Ding Dongs, then you may be a little disappointed on how expensive everything is. A bonus there, though, Costa Rica's healthcare is very inexpensive. Now, I'm going to strongly suggest this to everybody. If you plan on keeping your United States citizenship and you have healthcare, still get healthcare for living overseas. There's another type of insurance when you do this, but in many places, you end up paying it out of pocket. I think my brother broke his arm or his leg. I can't remember now, but he broke something and it didn't cost him hardly anything. And he even got x-rays. He got it all cast. He didn't even put it on his insurance. He just paid for it cash. For some of you, you might have children, school systems there. Costa Rica actually has a really good education system there. So you don't have to worry about that if that's something that might be holding you back. Just do your due diligence ahead of time. There's plenty of people to talk to about living in Costa Rica. A good resource for every single country I talk to is to find Facebook groups. You know, they're giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, you're always going to have some people that are negative Nellies that are really disappointed with the country they moved to. But read into those comments. Some people are just complainers. And some people have a vision of what they thought that country was going to be. And when they got there, it was kind of all crumbled around them. Make sure you do your research ahead of time. Cost of living is just one tiny part of moving to another country. There's so many other things you need to consider before you decide to make the big leap. So let's go ahead and talk about the next country. Why did I wink?
What about Mexico? Mexico, we can learn Spanish together. We get the Duolingo.
Mexico is 39% cheaper than the United States to live there. And again, just like Portugal, just like Costa Rica, the closer you get to busier cities, the more expensive it's going to be. Now, some areas of Mexico have gotten so inundated with so many Americans that it's gotten just as expensive as some American apartments. But not all areas are like that. Just know that the food is going to cost you less. Transportation is going to cost you less, and your utilities out there are going to be considerably less. I strongly advise you, if you're going to move to Mexico, learn how to speak Spanish before you get there. Don't expect people that live there to understand English. You're moving to their country, because that's what happened to a friend of mine, and they moved out there, had expectations of being around nothing but Americans, and they were, but once they were going out in the city, they had a hard time getting around because they didn't understand Spanish. Now, if you're planning on renting in Mexico, just know that the laws with rentals are not the same as the United States. And when he was there, he ended up getting kicked out of a lot of rentals along the way. He couldn't even get back to his home country because of expiration of his passport, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. But he would stay at one Airbnb, and they were very strict on the fact that he had to be out. He couldn't extend his Airbnb stay. Then another Airbnb had him there for a period of time. Even though he was supposed to be there for 2 months, the host was able to get more money, and he went ahead and kicked him out again. So he kept moving from Airbnb until he was able to straighten out everything with his passport. Total nightmare. So I'm just going to let you know, if you're planning on renting, understand the laws and what you're signing and what you're getting into and how long you can stay in that rental unit. Try to work with other people that have lived in Mexico for quite some time that are from the United States, so you got to understand the processes of that. Again, start joining those Facebook groups of people that have moved to different areas of Mexico. And I would say go ahead and rent for a period of time in different cities so you know where you want to live. Mexico is a huge country. You can't just all of a sudden say, well, I'm definitely moving to this area and then be stuck there, and then you're really upset. The Airbnb thing sounds like a really good idea, especially if you don't understand where you really want to live. So you are stuck there for a shorter period of time. Now you won't be able to bring all your stuff. That's a whole new expense. All your couches and refrigerators over to another country. It may not be as affordable as you think it's going to be. Like you're letting go of your whole entire life. All these things that you've accumulated over the years. If you think about it in the heat of the moment, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, but then you're gonna have to buy refrigerators. You got to get another car. You're gonna have to switch over a bunch of stuff and all the paperwork. It's a big decision. Don't take this lightly. But Mexico is on third on my list. Maybe no, it's probably the second one on my list. But I still love Portugal more. That's still going to be my number one. Maybe this next country is your number one. Let me see if you like this one better.
I heard Thailand is really nice and affordable. Ooh, you like Thailand.
I have a couple of friends that live in Thailand, and they have a great life there. They've lived there for many, 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 many years, and they absolutely love it. It was a lot to get used to. Again, culturally, it's completely different than the United States. If you cannot adapt, do not go to any country. Do not move out of the United States if you cannot adapt, period. But for them, it was a great way to change their whole entire mindset. They said it totally rewired their brain once they moved to Thailand. Now, if you've never been there before, the climate there is absolutely beautiful. Very hot, very humid, much like Louisiana, but different. The food costs there are way cheaper than the United States. The cost of living there, now you can go as cheap as $650 a month, but you would be living not the way you probably grown accustomed to. But you can go all the way up to, the sky's the limit. Some of those places, like if you were okay with paying about $3,000 a month, you feel like you're living in a palace. Now, the people of Thailand are super friendly. So from what I've been told, it isn't really easy to purchase a home in Thailand, but it's a lot easier to rent. A lot of most expats actually rent there. I'm not saying it's not possible, but this is what I've been told. And just like I've said about every single area you want to live in, the rent and the cost of living is going to be dependent how close you are to those major cities. Once you get into those more major cities, that's when you're going to be paying a lot more in rent. Now, your utility bills in Thailand are going to be a lot less expensive than here in the United States. They're averaging at around $31 to $100 a month. I don't think I've ever had an electricity bill under $100. I take that back. One winter I did, and I didn't turn on the heat. I'm cheap. Just know that it does get hot there, and you're going to need air conditioning. So those months that the air conditioning is blasting, you're going to be spending a lot more on your utilities. But I mean, if we're looking at just like $125, I don't know. That seems so pricey.
Is that sarcasm?
One cool thing about Thailand that most people don't know, especially if you're a digital nomad, those people that can go ahead and grab their computer and go anywhere, is there are internet cafes all over, and you always have high-speed internet. It is a great place for a digital nomad. Matter of fact, my friends that live in Thailand, they are digital nomads, and that's why they've stayed there for so long, because their job is through the internet. The only thing they complain about is sometimes they do have rolling blackouts, which kind of stinks, but what are you going to do? Every country has their negatives and their positives. If you don't have a car, not a big deal. They do have public transportation in Thailand, and generally the cost of healthcare in Thailand is reasonable. Again, just know that it's important for you to have that insurance to cover you in those kinds of cases. But in other times, you can go to the hospital and walk out with a $30 bill. Can you imagine in the United States getting a $30 bill? It's important for all expats to invest into some travel insurance. I'm not a travel insurance expert. Please look into that. I'm going to tell you this over and over and over again. Look in other Facebook groups and look on Reddit. Reddit is another great place to talk to people that live in Thailand currently. Getting real feedback from real people that are currently living there that used to be United States citizens is going to be your number one tool to understand where you're actually moving to if you want to leave the United States. So what do you think of Thailand? Let me know. But we have one more country to talk about.
Many of my friends moved there. That's affordable, right?
Now, this country is the one that my husband wants me to really put on our list, and we talk about it often. And I always say no because I have a preconceived idea about it. But you let me know what you think. And it is Colombia. Now, the reason he loves this country so much is this is where his family's from. He still has aunts and uncles that live out there, and he claims it to be very safe. And in my brain, because I was growing up in the 90s, all I can think of is the gorillas going after people. And because I was young, I kept thinking that there were literally gorillas, like apes coming out of the jungle.
Apes talk.
You know, killing people. Like, how stupid. So dumb. But he says it's a beautiful country. And he also says that the cost of living there isn't so bad. So let me and you go on a little journey together and see how inexpensive it is to live in Colombia and compare it to the United States. Okay, we are on the website mylifeelsewhere.com. Cost of living compared to the United States to Colombia. Oh, this is a great little website, by the way. You can put in any country and you can compare to the cost of living. So a basic meal with a drink is about 74% less in Colombia. Fast food is about 35% less. A bottle of Coca-Cola is 67% less expensive. By the way, I know we're talking about Colombia, but have you ever had a Mexican Coke? It's made with real sugar cane. It is 10 times better than a regular Coke in a can. Hands down my favorite. Back to Colombia. Sorry, I digressed. Loaf of bread is about 59% less. Local cheese is 62% less. A gallon of milk, though, will cost you more in Colombia by 6%. That might be the reason why you don't want to move there. Public transit is about 46% less. A one-bedroom apartment is 82% cheaper. A one-bedroom apartment is 82% cheaper. Outside the city, it's 84% cheaper. So on average, it's 83% cheaper to live in Colombia in comparison to the United States. Now, my husband's family is from Bogota. I hope I said that right. And his mom is from Medellin. God, I hope I'm saying those correctly. And they always send me pictures of how incredibly beautiful it is there. The food there is absolutely outstanding. The culture is rich. There are plenty of Americans and other expats from other countries that have moved to Colombia. I just don't know enough about it. I know it's super affordable to live there. I just don't know enough about it. My husband is still trying to convince me of it. If you happen to live in Colombia or you are from Colombia, let me know in the comments section and let me know your opinion about it. If it's a good, affordable place for an expat like my husband and I to move out there. I want to go to Portugal because nobody would know me and I'd have to do it on my own. It's like cutting the cord. Figure it out, Kristina. I can do that.
Well, I have a lot to think about. Maybe moving out of the country isn't such a bad idea.
So what do you think? What country would you pick?
But Portugal's still looking good to me and my little bear.
Let me know in the comments section below. To watch more videos, you're going to want to watch these videos right here. My name is Kristina Smallhorn, your real estate whisperer, and I tell you all this because good real estate information matters. And I don't want you to leave the country. I like you. Don't go anywhere.